Hello everybody, thank you very much for joining this webinar. As you may understand, this webinar is really aiming at promoting transparency and fairness by providing you the same information to all. So we will focus the webinar mainly on the scientific aspect of the topic in order for you to get acquainted with the call and to facilitate your work when applying. So topic writer will present, as Catherine just mentioned, and explain the needs and expectation of this particular topic, on this particular topic. So what I would like to underline here is give you some information on how you should, consider when applying. Make sure that you will cover all aspects of the call topic, meaning that all the objectives of the project should be addressed. You should also mention what are exactly that you are bringing in this public-private partnership in terms of collaborative research. You should also make sure that consider the structure of the project and the expected contribution that should be made here when applying. It should also, you will also hear from this presentation the contribution of AFPA participants as well as the key deliverables. So as I mentioned, the webinar is mainly focusing on the scientific aspect. We will not cover the rules and procedure. This has been covered previously in a webinar organized yesterday, okay, on the 15th of October. So I'd like to also probably address some issue that might be of interest for you when applying. It is mainly on some tips when submitting your proposal. I mean, this sounds common sense, but I think it's always nice to have this reminded because we've seen that these are issues that might be under-considered when applying. So please make sure that you read all the relevant material on the IMI website. Make sure that you understand as well the IMI2 rules and respect them. If they are there, it is because there is a need for that, and that all the participants and applicants will be, will be expected to, respect these rules, of course, and provide all the information the reviewer will need to evaluate your proposal. Meaning that the most clarity you can give when preparing your application, the better it is for the reviewer when evaluating and going through your application. This might just be an added value for you. So, of course, start working as early as possible because we all know that this takes time, and make sure that you take this period of time to address all these objectives that the call topic is about. So at the end, of course, don't forget to finalize your proposal and to submit it as well. So one of the mistakes we've been, recording with the time is really regarding some criteria like the admissibility and the eligibility criteria. Sometimes they are not met. So please make sure that you understand and you, apply this criteria when submitting your proposal. So among them, some of applicants might miss the deadline, might propose an application which may be out of scope, and submit the text which does not respect the proposal template as it is mentioned in our rules. And of course, one of the major points also to address is to make sure that you have minimum number of legal entities as it is required in our rules. So one of the criteria I just mentioned is really about the admissibility and eligibility criteria. And make sure to increase your chance when submitting your application is really go through what is exactly needed in terms of expertise there, and make sure that there is no redundancy between partners. Make this clear in your proposal, All objectives should be, of course, addressed. Make sure that you reply to all the expectation coming from the topic writer and what exactly should be addressed. Don't miss one of these objectives, okay? And make sure that the impact of the proposal is how to say, in line with the objective of the call. You will have here on this slide some information on how to find project partners. Of course, this is only to help you to, how to say, fill in the gap in terms of one particular expertise. You will not build your consortium based on this platform, but you may find, how to say, additional applicants or expertise there that will fulfill your needs, okay? So here's the link to the IMR Partner Search tool, where eventually you can find this additional expertise. And make sure that if you need any information, that you get in touch with your local IMI contact point. You have the link here on the slides. Talk as well to your health contact national point, and a network on social media as well. This helps a lot to find project partners. So these are more or less the tips that we'd like to bring you here. When having a question after this webinar to the topic writer, please make sure that you send this to IMI. We will liaise with the AFP topic writer, and we'll make sure that you will receive a feedback to your question when it comes to how to say information on the topic itself, on the science, on the expectation, on whatever question which is specific with the context. So this is one of the reasons why today you have given the chance to speak directly to the topic writer and to raise your questions. So please take this opportunity and don't miss this meeting. So with that, I will finish my presentation and I will give the floor to the topic writer to present the objective of the project and how to address the expectation and the needs. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Fatia. Tay, it's over to you. Tay, can you hear us? Okay, I'm not sure if Tay is able to hear us or any of the other topic writers. They should still be online according to the system. Let me just see if there's a problem with them.
Hello.
Hello.
I can hear you.
Yes, we can hear you now. Go ahead.
Excellent. Thank you, IMI office, FPA, for giving us this opportunity. On the line today, we have myself, Tay Salimullah from Novartis, along with our global head as well, Simon Thomas from Novartis, and also Stefano and Pam from Celgene. And between us four, we'll guide you through some of the thinking on this topic and also be available to answer some of your questions. Firstly, thank you to the IMI office for the opportunity, to the FPA colleagues, and also our partner companies that helped us to achieve this first milestone. So we're here on behalf of our consortia, which is a collaboration with 7 companies to date. So with that in mind, can we go to the next slide, please? So the proposal fits very nicely the haematologic malignancies outcomes-focused platform to enable policymakers and clinicians to optimize care for patients with hematologic malignancies within the Big Data for Better Outcomes framework. So on this slide, you'll see that we are part of a wider program where the support is to move the healthcare systems towards outcomes-focused and sustainable healthcare systems, looking at opportunities to offer and exploit big and deep data sources. And when you scroll down the slide, you look at hematologic malignancies features very much as part of 3 or 4 other therapy areas. And the team today are going to be focused on this topic on hematologic malignancies. Next slide, please. So what we'd like to do here is just provide a little bit of background on how our thinking emerged and why there's a specific need for database selection of most valuable treatments. So on the left-hand side on your screen, you'll see that now we'll refer to HM as haematologic malignancies account for about a third of cancer cases in children and resulting in almost a third of cancer deaths. And treatment is aggressive with multiple courses, and there's been, despite that, significant children and adults relapse and are refractory to treatment, and progress still has to be made. And why that is patients are waiting for life-saving treatments, and we'll talk to you a little bit about this through the proposal. And there's a desire and a need for healthcare systems, payers, providers, physicians to speed up decision-making in the process to bring life-changing therapies for patients with unmet need. I draw your attention now to the right-hand side of the slide. Although there is data available in many pockets, many small subsets, there is, we believe, as a consortia to further have an opportunity to leverage this and exploit this and optimize it going forward. Now, despite healthcare systems with having rich data sources, there's a potential to optimize this further. There's a small number of patients which results in different data fields, which result in little use of the information and maybe not always able to harmonize it and reach meaningful analysis. So in order to optimize the data collection and explore the unmet needs from patients, especially those who fell on standard treatment options and where there's no hope left for these with a very aggressive hematologic cancer. So we want to try and further improve the quality of access to data to evaluate new interventions, and with the real-world situation to use it as helpful comparisons in order to reach more meaningful decisions and for the system to move to a more outcomes-based approach. So with that, can we go to the next slide, please? So why do we believe there's a need for a public and private partnership in this area? So certainly the size and the magnitude of the challenge ahead is not for one company to solve on its own. So we've demonstrated here in this consortia that already there's 7 companies involved with a potential 8th who all feel very strongly about this topic. And we feel that the European Commission, academia, industry have already invested significantly in this field. And progress has been made as outlined on the slide with various registries, with LeukemiaNet, various forms of standardization across the European Union. There's some international diagnosis sets people can refer to, data sets, tissue banks. So in a nutshell, there are pockets of very rich information already out there. So by no way we're trying to recreate something here. However, the project will benefit in this area to bring both the public and the private partnership to continue this approach for future research in hematologic malignancies as the space emerges with more and more new advanced therapies. So there's an opportunity to identify and define outcomes that matter to patients, to clinicians, and payers. Secondly, there's an opportunity to capture and aggregate and analyze this rich data source to extract relevant insights to inform future decision making. And then thirdly, to leverage the outcomes to optimize decisions on value-based care, reimbursement, and ensuring rapid patient access where no options are left for some patients, and how do we minimize that time for them to receive therapy. Can we go to the next slide, please? So continuing on the need and for private and public partnership, we thought it would be important to also highlight, and from the topic text, full transparency, that the industry, the biopharma industry in partnership with academia is on the cusp of delivering breakthrough solution in HMs. through innovations such as immunomodulator approaches, through cell and gene therapies, through various new technologies, with early trials demonstrating unprecedented response rates, where in the past those patients may not have had any hope. And the urgency of bringing these potentially life-saving technologies with speed and efficiency to patients who may not have other options is clearly recognized and validated through special designations from regulatory bodies, not only in the European Union, but also by the FDA. And our responsibility is to bring this breakthrough science to patients who have no hope, and how to optimize this through both a public and private collaboration. Next slide, please. What we'd like to do here is just break down by different stakeholders or groups who may have an interest in this area, and detail what it means in each area and the challenge that exists. So firstly, alignment on outcomes. There's clearly some acknowledgement that there's a lack of definition and full alignment on outcomes that are relevant to all stakeholders and patients. The availability of benchmarks. So policymakers having limited benchmarks data to evaluate the risk-benefit ratio and value. Demonstrating risk-benefit, so personalized medicine emerging is allowing for more focused treatment options, increasing the difficulty of demonstrating the risk-benefit in the real world in rare diseases with small numbers of patient populations. And then clinicians having to make treatment choices based on short-term, often surrogate, and often non-comparable data. So the opportunity is how do we harmonize that and bring that together. And then for patients, not having the right access to the right treatment at the right time, and often resulting at, when even an approval exists through a regulatory framework, sometimes a delay in uptake and access. And then for payers working under budgets, having the need to make reimbursement decisions on life-prolonging options with limited data and finite budget. So this is by no means a complete list, but it's a start of where we think some of the stakeholders may have an interest in this area. Which leads us to the actual title, which is we want to bring this development and under an umbrella of outcomes-focused platform to empower the policymakers, clinicians to optimize care for patients with HM. Next slide, please. So again, for those who've read the topic text, these objectives are mirroring exactly what's in the topic text. And we'll just run through very briefly that firstly, our objective is to build an understanding of how to measure outcomes for selected HMs. In collaboration with national health authorities, health technology assessment bodies, regulatory agencies, payers, providers, and patients, including alignment on relevance of different outcomes for different uses. And then develop a data sharing platform that empowers clinicians to improve decision making and provide appropriate treatments to patients with hematologic malignancies. We want to have the opportunity to harmonize the data capture, access the data in a real-time, real-world data fashion, and then also ensure at the completion of the 5 years as an ongoing sustainability plan to continue the work that started. Next slide, please. So finally, we want to have the opportunity as well in our objectives to ensure that the medical and policy initiatives are informed through a fact-based. Decisions are made from much larger, diverse data sets that have been harmonized and queried both by medical and non-medical experts. And we have, in the first initial scope, called out 6 hematologic malignancies that the proposal reflects, which are in line with the interests of the current partners, the list is reflected based on the call out from the companies that are involved. And we've singled here that it's an initial scope, and there may be an opportunity as the project evolves to maybe look at different parts of hematologic malignancies as well. Next slide. So the expected impact we were asked to share on the R&D process as well is by creating such large, diverse pools of data, harmonizing it, bringing it together, there's an opportunity to optimize product development through better identification of unmet needs, help the trial design and outcomes that matter to patients. And then also being very specific on ensuring that the right patients get the right treatment, so targeting the therapies of the patients who will benefit most. So this is, again, being efficient and effective in a world we live in today where, you know, there's constraints on resources, on funding, on budgets. But if we were to bring this data together, hopefully it will enable us to plan our treatments for patients in the best way and to optimize this across different data sets. With that in mind, I'll hand over now to talk through a little bit more of the specifics to my colleague Stefano from Celgi.
Thank you so much, Tay. So if you can advance to the next slide, please. Here you see basically the suggested architecture of the project and articulated in 8 work packages. So you see some overarching work packages, work package 1 and 6 through 8, and then some sequential work packages 2 through 5. So I'll start with these. Work package 2 will consist of defining specific outcomes, and that would be, of course, specific for each disease area that the project will follow. And following that also, or in parallel, we're going to map the different data available and for this project. And you know, with that, there would be also an assessment of the quality and of the methods used for data capture. In work package 4, then the building of the data platform to host these different data sets that we're going to merge, and therefore there will be also the data curation effort and the analysis tools, which will lead to work package 5, which will be the analytics of the data, so the development of a pan-European framework to actually query the data and develop and evaluate health outcomes achieved with different therapeutic interventions. So throughout the project, then we'll have also work package 1, of course, which will be the project management of the whole program. Work package 6 will be working on integrating input from different other stakeholders, and so regulatory agencies, including EMA, HTA agencies, and payers in different countries. Work package 7 will include a program of communication and training around the project and its milestone and its achievements throughout the project. And then finally, I'm sure high on everybody's mind, a work package that will be working on the legal, ethics, and governance aspects of these. Now, clearly, since we're talking about sensitive data here and merging data sets that were originally intended for other purposes, having a thorough analysis of all the implications of this from a data privacy perspective and how to govern the data platform building as much as its query will be very, very relevant and very important. So that's going to be a key work package for the whole project. In the next slide, so this will be the expected contributions from the applicants. So first of all, I would say, you know, the multidisciplinary consortium should be able to have access to patient-level data in the diseases of interest. And here we will really envision to see this as broad as possible. So both in data coming from experimental settings as well as non-experimental settings or so-called real-world data, anything from registries, electronic medical records, single centers, databases. The value of the project is indeed to take data sets that have already generated perhaps value in other settings, but by putting them together to increase the value that they've generated. In terms of the data also, we, of course, in this area, we would not be doing a service if we did include some genomic data, but in the spirit of keeping as much as possible open the participation in the project, we think genomic data are, of course, great value to have, but we would not make it a prerequisite for a data set to be included. And then, of course, we would like the multidisciplinary consortium to be as diverse as possible and include different stakeholders going from regulatory agencies, HTA bodies, and technology companies. I think should be a key aspect of this. So as diverse as possible will increase the value of the project. And then continue on the next slide. Clearly, the experience that these different stakeholders will bring is going to be key, and so being in itself, made up of regulatory, public health, or people who have experience with these bodies and these stakeholders will be really important for the success. And so having also the capacity to engage with these stakeholders and knowledge of these different environments, going from the regulatory environment, country-specific legislation environment, payers environment, and HTA. Obviously, we expect to be provided with clinical expertise. I think the understanding of the clinical aspects of each disease are going to be important. Health economics and outcomes research, patient-reported outcomes are also going to be important expertise. And the patient's own experience would be great to have included into this project. Obviously, data management, data analysis, and systems to manage data and handle data and store data would be also an important additional contribution. If we go on to the next slide, in terms of the expected contribution from the FPA consortium members, we believe that we're going to bring significant experience in the management of complex and large-scale collaborations, as well as treatments of data sets. That's one of the core competencies of biopharma industry, as well as expertise in clinical trials, in hematological malignancies specifically, because all the companies in the consortium are clearly leading companies in hematological malignancies therapies. Also, in terms of the real-world data or non-experimental settings, all of our companies have been engaged in many of these activities, and also managing and handling of biomolecular samples and analysis of biomolecular samples, biostatistics, data mining, emerging large data sets, and finally project communication and training. And then if we go then on the next slide, I think it's also important. What we expect will be the advantages for applicants to this project. I'll keep the most important for last, which will be patients. We believe that clinicians, providers, healthcare professionals, and academic researchers will have the possibility, by accessing a more diverse, larger database, to actually, from a research point of view, as Tay also already mentioned, potentially to improve how they design the research and identify better unmet needs and what are the best design for future studies. In terms of clinicians in day-to-day practice, they will have better information to make treatment decisions, and I believe, especially in hematological malignancies, the treatment landscape becoming more and more complex with more products available, more combinations of products available. I think only by having very meaningful databases, physicians will be able to make better decisions. From a point of view of regulators, payers, and HTAs, clearly with this type of products and diseases and type of therapies, so high-value therapies, high-impact therapies, only by having very granular and very large data sets, regulators will be able to really assess the value new treatments availabilities, and as well from a payers and HTA perspective, understand how the resources that they are responsible for are utilized. They can only assess that through really meaningful data sets. And finally, if we go to the, I'm sorry, I don't want to forget the most important, sorry, if you can go back one slide. But it's really for the patients. I mean, patients will obviously benefit from all of the above. So better decision-making from clinicians, better research from researchers, better resource utilization from the point of view of regulators and payers. And ideally, one day, patients will also have their own access to data for them to be also part of this decision-making process. So I think this ultimately will have to benefit patients, and we all strongly believe it will. So finally, in the next two slides, the deliverable of the project. So as has been already mentioned, basically, first of all, a set of standard outcomes. So by looking at these databases, we'll be able to understand what outcomes are most relevant for the different stakeholders, from a clinical standpoint as much as patient standpoints. And also a set of standard and exploratory molecular tests that should be performed for hematological malignancies. An outcome of the project will also be an alignment for stakeholders, and also an understanding of the different value of different indications for different usage. You can see here listed some. The mapping of potential data sources in itself will be a valuable outcome. And then description of methods and tools for data capture, data curation, and outcomes measure to also understand what are the current overlaps and, most importantly, the gaps for each data source. And in the next slide, continuing on the key deliverables, a strategy to understand the data quality and what is necessary in terms of data curation to integrate these data sources, develop an harmonized quality technical standard, as well as I mentioned already, very important governance standards for this data management. And then finally, the creation of these large harmonized data sets, forming a repository of existing databases for exponential types of queries, above what was originally done for these data sets. This will allow the understanding of what are the current met and unmet needs in hematological malignancies, also understanding better and better what patient outcomes can be generated by different therapy choices, as well as, of course, health economics and outcomes research questions, and more than all of us can think of. And then finally, to develop a pan-European framework to value and evaluate health outcomes achieved with innovative and non-innovative therapies in hematological malignancies. And of course, like Tay mentioned, these are all coming from the topic text where you can find more details. But unless Tay or anyone else of the panelists has any other comment, I think we can now move on to the questions and answers section.
Thank you very much, Stefano and Tay, for your presentation. So, as Stefano said, it is now time for you to ask your questions. And also, as Stefano mentioned, this is all based on the full topic text, which is available on the IMI website. And I would really recommend that you read the core text and all the other core documentation as well, because this will really help you to be clear about what is needed for a strong application. So here you can see again how to ask a question here in the webinar. We already have a couple of questions in writing. For those of you who haven't used it yet, you just type your question into the questions panel and you click send. If you want to ask a question by phone, you can just raise your hand. As I said, we have a couple of questions already, and they're both on the topic. So Manuel has sent in a question from the Josep Carreras Leukemia Research Institute in Barcelona in Spain. And the question is it mandatory in the proposal to include all 6 hematologic malignancies mentioned in the topic? And if a proposal only tackles 3 or 4 of these, would it be rejected?
Tej, shall I take this?
Yeah, you can jump in, and then maybe Simon and Pan can also comment, or the FPA team. But why don't you kick us off?
Yeah, I think. Well, I would say I would not, in principle, reject something that covers only some of the malignancies. I would expect that ultimately, maybe even different applicants could, in the end, cover all. But I wouldn't say that in principle is a reason to reject.
Just to add there, I mean, when you say different applicants, I mean, I think it would be important here to be clear that IMI will only fund one consortium here. So as with most IMI calls for proposals, what will happen here is that the reviewers will select the best ranked consortium out of all the proposals submitted, and that one consortium will be invited to work together with the FP partners to develop the full proposal. So, I mean, it won't be possible. What you can't do with any IMI call for proposals is apply to half of the topic. I don't know if you want to add something on that, Fatia.
Yeah, just to add something that, as Catherine just said, it is a competitive call. So your application will be, evaluated among others proposals. So there will be a big competition. So the panel will evaluate what the application is bringing in, and of course the fact that you have in your application 4 or 5 or 6 of the hematological malignancy that are needed there, that are proposed to go on. I mean, this will also be something which will be at the discretion of the panel. So what we mean is you could send an application with 4 or 5, but of course there will be other applications which will cover all the hematological malignancy that are mentioned there, and this will probably have some importance in the balance when taking a decision.
Yes. Hi, this is Simon Thomas. I also wanted to comment that the whole idea of a public partnership is the consortium perspective. And it is in our best interest to cover as wide as the number of disease areas that we have recognized. So, and we also recognize that not one entity can cover all of them. So the idea would be to partner with other public partners and to have a joint proposal so it meets the objectives of this call 6.
Okay. Thank you. We have a question from Ellen Huff-Davis, who says, we're a digital health startup providing disease-specific apps for patients to monitor PROs, QOL, medication adherence, adverse events, and healthcare usage. We believe this would fall under Work Package 3. Do you have any initial thoughts on the suitability of us applying to be a partner in the consortium for prospective data collection? I don't know if you want to comment, Tay and Stefano and the rest of you, on if that's an expertise that you think is needed in the project.
So I'll kick off so we are open to the idea of partners where they have expertise in data collection, curation, exploitation, opportunity to harmonize, bring it together. So from my perspective, in a nutshell, in Work Package 3, yes, there's an opportunity to be part of that. But I also ask my colleagues to comment.
Stefano here. I basically would reinforce what Tej just said. I think we're very open. I think that is an expertise that typically, biopharma companies do not have. We had a discussion within the FPA consortium whether how important it was to include patient-reported outcomes, which is what we're talking about. And we believe these are going to become more and more important. So while maybe we're still in the beginning of this type of data collection, I think we think this is going to become more and more important. So I think we would love to explore this further. I think this would be important.
Okay, thank you. We have a question from Tom Davenade-Witt, who says, given the budget and expected deliverables, what is the ideal number of consortium participants? On this one, I mean, this is a very common question, and there are two things you need to think about. First, there is the legal aspect, which is the legal minimum number of partners you have to have for your consortium to be even eligible. I think, and Fatia can correct me if I'm wrong, that for most IMI2 topics, we need to have 3 partners who are eligible to receive IMI funding in 3 different member states or countries associated to the Horizon 2020 research program. That's the basic legal requirement, and if you don't meet that, your proposal will not even be looked at by the reviewers because it will be ineligible. Then there is the practical question, and then here the answer is a little bit how long is a piece of string, because it really depends. Every project is different. If you have a very big project with a very wide scope, covering lots of very diverse research areas, you're going to need more partners than if it's a smaller project with a narrower scope where most of the expertise is quite concentrated. The important thing is to make sure, and this also relates a little bit to the question that Ellen asked as well just now, make sure that your consortium is really meets all the has the expertise to allow you to meet all the requirements of the topic text. I mean, the FPA team just took us through in great detail what is required for this topic. In the topic text itself, there's always a section on what we are looking for in the applicants that spells it out very well. So look at that and see that your consortium has all of those in there. At the same time, you want to avoid redundancy between your partners, so there shouldn't be too much overlap. But you need to find that balance. And as I say, there's no, apart from the legal minimum, I can't tell you, well, you should have 10 or 20 or 30 or 40. That is different from project to project. But make sure what you should be doing, your tick list should be, have we got the legal minimum and have we got all the expertise we need to deliver on this project? Because that's really what you'll be assessed on. A question in a related area from Ellen Huff-Davis, how do we join a consortium? So you have obviously already identified the area where you can contribute to this project, which is good with your PROs and things and your apps. What you would need to do then, the best thing you can do is use your personal and professional networks and find the leading people working in this area and find out through your networks who is forming a consortium. There are also things like IMI has an online partner search tool, and there are other partner search tools provided by various European networks. You can use social media. We will send around the participant list of this event, which will give you a very good clue as to who is interested in this topic. But in the end, to be honest, the best thing to do is to use your networks and go to them and say, listen, this topic requires expertise in this area, and we are the best because X, Y, Z, to really argue your case. So that's all we can do there. And to be very clear, this is a competitive call. So we at the IMI office, we can create tools for you and create opportunities like our partner search tool, like circulating the participant list, but we can't help individual people because it's a competition. So, you know, you have to go and find those people. It's really in the interest of fairness between all the participants. And in the end, you have to convince someone who's putting together a consortium to take you on, and we can't obviously force them to do that. So it's really, you have to, networking is a really important part of IMI, as one of the FPS speakers said earlier. The whole point here is to gather together expertise from lots of different groups that can't solve these huge problems on their own. So we have another topic question from Anthony Morman. I am the custodian of a very large database of demographic, clinical, genetic and outcome data from patients with ALL. I think that these data would fit with the core objectives, but I need to find a consortium to work with. How do I do this? I've just answered that, sorry, it's not topic related. So again, network, like crazy. That really is the key. Use all the tools available and get out there and spread the word that you're looking and you have something that could be relevant. Eric Kaldenhoven has a question which relates to the wider Big Data program. So the project is part of a larger program and will be coordinated through the coordination and support action. How important is it to have a partner alignment, for example, in the data management domain with the CSA, DDN or other projects? Fatia, would you like to answer this one?
I think it's probably more to the topic writer to answer this, but I'm not sure. I don't think that it is a requirement that there will be a link between this proposal and, of course, the CSA, but this program itself will have its own governance and management. So, and from this, there will be probably a link to the CSA as how to share some particular information that are needed for the CSA. But I think I leave the floor to the topic writer to explain this much further.
Stefano, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah, I can comment on that. So, yeah, no, I don't have much to add. So, of course, there's a significant overlap in the consortium between the CSA and this program, so to make sure that any synergy and any maximization of the activities can be fully leveraged. But beyond that, I think as the work will start, we need to make sure that we don't duplicate work and that we leverage what we do. So we have already discussed this, and we expect to be doing this on the course of the programs.
Also, I would add that the core topic for the coordination and support action hasn't actually been launched yet. It will be launched soon. So, in any case, on the public side, so for the universities and the SMEs and the patient groups, there is no one to align to yet on that side. So, go ahead. But I would say the advice here would be to find the best people you can find for this topic, and then, as we said, the alignment with the other projects will come later and should come naturally, and will also be mediated partly through the FPA partners as well, because they're obviously working together to make sure the program is coherent when they write the topic. So find the best partners you can for this topic. I cannot see any other questions for the moment. So I will just remind you that you can, of course, always ask us questions, and I really would advise you, if you're not clear on anything in any of the core documents, whether it's the topic text, whether it's one of the more legal documents on our rules, then do get in touch with us. You can email us on info@imi.europa.eu. There's a contact link at the top of the IMI website. You can reach us through Twitter, through LinkedIn, by phone. It really is our job to help you and to make sure that the core topics and the information surrounding them is as clear as possible, so that you can do the best possible application. So don't hesitate to get in touch with us if you have any questions.
But I would encourage any of you here listening to this webinar presentation to really ask the question to the topic writer, because this is a unique opportunity for the time being.
Yeah, I mean, this is your chance to have direct contact with them. After today, you should always come via IMI. Another question from Eric. Maybe more specific regarding the data capture integration IT platform. Within Europe, there is already an S3 project organization, Elixir, and an IMI project, Etrix, handling data integration. Should we connect to that?
It's similar to the previous. So yes, we will. As the project will proceed, we will make sure that anything that can be leveraged from existing project is indeed leveraged. So we have it on the plan that we need to make sure there is an ongoing discussion, liaison, and link to make sure we don't lose any opportunity for leverage.
And another one which Fatir has also pointed out, that we also have project EHR4CR, which is on electronic health records, and EMIF, which is on a medical information framework. So we do already have a few big data projects in IMI that are mentioned in the core text. Sorry, I interrupted one of the topic writers. Go ahead.
Yes, hi, this is Simon. I want to add to what has already been shared, the fact that the focus of this particular project is a lot more on the content of hematologic malignancies. So even when you look at the work package 1, 2, and 3 is specific to defining clinical endpoints and what kind of data we need to have. And then we talk about work package 4 and 5, where it is data specific. So this is where the collaboration with the other ongoing programs may come in. And even here, we may leverage what is put in place from a structural perspective from other IMI calls, but then the data, which is content heavy, is the focus of this particular call.
Okay, thank you. We have a question from Han Abalafia. Sorry. Is it possible to get feedback from IMI as a draft of a project prior to the deadline? The answer there, I'm afraid, is no. As I said, you can ask us questions if something is not clear, but I would really advise you to read all the advice we've given you, but we cannot review actual draft projects because it would be rather unfair, and also as an office we do not have the capacity to do that. As I said, this is a competitive call. So while we provide as much information and clarification as we can to make sure that everyone has all the information they need, we do have to take a certain amount of distance at this stage so that it's a fair competition. Any other questions? There is silence on the board. There's another very good question has just come in, Manuel Marias. Can we discuss the project with Novartis or Celgene in the first phase? No. Again, if you have any questions on the topic, send them to us at IMI. And if we need to go to Novartis or Celgene to get a clarification, we will do that and send the answer back to you. But again, it's really so that we can make sure that all the information on the core topics comes through us, so that we can be sure that there is fairness and transparency. Because say, for example, you got a clarification that other people haven't had or something like that, it could be seen as unfair, especially if it didn't go through us. And if we get questions where we feel that there is something in the core text that is not obvious, or if there is something, if we see there's a frequently asked question that a lot of people aren't clear on, then we do sometimes publish questions and answers on our website as well. So do keep an eye on the IMI website for that. We have another question from Eric Kaldenhoven. The project needs regulatory expertise such as from the EMA. I understand that they joined the winning proposal. Is that correct? It has been the case in some past ones. I would have to check and get back to you on this one, because the status of the EMA at the moment in terms of things like their eligibility for funding is something we're discussing. FBA people, do any of you know this one? If there's been any discussion with the EMA on your side?
Other than the fact that we got feedback from one of the EMA advisors on the early phase of the topic text.
Okay.
And yeah.
That is a very good question, no, and I think that's the kind of thing that what we can do is Fatia can look into that and see what the status would be for the EMA in this project, because that's a very good question. So we'll get back to that one, and we will put something on the website on that. So thank you for that question. Anything else?
Stefano, may be helpful also to assess the eligibility also of other regulatory agencies at an individual member state level.
Exactly. Yes, there is that as well. Yeah. Okay. Well, for the moment, I cannot see any more questions, so I would like to thank Fatia for her presentation, and of course to topic writers and the panelists for calling in and giving their presentation. Thank you to all of you for your questions. We will follow up on those. We will send you out the presentation, and the video file of this will be put online, so you can consult them later, and we'll send that link round. We will also send round the participant list so you can get networking. So on that note, I will wish you all good luck with your applications, and say have a nice weekend. Goodbye, everybody.
Goodbye, and thank you.
Goodbye.